It happens when everything else goes quiet. The room is dark. Your phone is face down. There is nothing left to distract you. And then, without invitation, without warning, without any logical reason for it to surface right now, a memory arrives. Not a useful memory. Not something you need. A memory of something you said 7 years ago that landed wrong. A memory of a moment where you stumbled, or froze, or said exactly the wrong thing, or laughed at the wrong time, or sent a message you immediately regretted. A memory so specific, so vivid, so soaked in that particular flavor of shame that your body responds to it as if it is happening right now. Your face flushes, your chest tightens, you pull the blanket up as if you can hide from the inside of your own mind. You lie there asking yourself the same question everyone asks in this moment. Why? Why is my brain doing this? Why now? Why this? Why can I remember every excruciating detail of something that happened in 2017 but cannot remember what I had for lunch 3 days ago? The answer is not that your brain is broken. The answer is not that you are too sensitive or too neurotic or too unable to let things go. The answer is something far more interesting, something that reaches back into your evolutionary history and explains not just why this happens, but why it had to happen. Why a brain that did not do this would have been a brain that got its owner killed. Your brain is not tormenting you, it is trying to protect you. It is just doing it very, very badly in a world it was never designed for. Start with what actually happens in the brain during social embarrassment. When you experience a moment of significant social failure, your brain does not file it away the way it files away neutral information. It tags it. It marks it with an emotional signature that makes it retrievable under conditions that ordinary memories never trigger. The structure responsible for this is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped region sitting deep in the temporal lobe. The amygdala is your brain's threat detection center. It processes fear, danger, and social threat with a speed and priority that bypasses most of your conscious processing. Why? When something emotionally significant happens, the amygdala floods the hippocampus, the region responsible for forming long-term memories, with stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones act as a biological highlighter. They say, "This matters. Remember this. Do not let this fade." Researchers have known for decades that emotional events are remembered more vividly and with greater accuracy than neutral ones. James McGaugh at the University of California, Irvine, spent much of his career studying exactly this phenomenon, and what he found was consistent. Emotional arousal at the time of an event significantly enhances the consolidation of that memory. The stronger the emotional response, the more deeply the memory is encoded. And social embarrassment produces a very strong emotional response. It activates the same threat circuitry that activates for physical danger, because for your ancestors, social threat was physical danger, being humiliated in front of the group, being judged, being seen as incompetent or unworthy or ridiculous. These were not just uncomfortable feelings, they were signals that your standing in the group was at risk. And as you already know, because you have heard it before in a slightly different context, your standing in the group was your survival. So the amygdala treats social embarrassment the way it treats a near miss with a predator. Something bad almost happened. Something bad could happen again. We need to learn from this. We need to remember every detail. Why we need to be able to recognize the conditions that led to this situation so we can avoid it next time. This is called threat memory consolidation. And it is not a bug. It is one of the most sophisticated adaptive mechanisms your brain has. Now here is the part that explains the 3 a.m. replay specifically. Memory consolidation, the process by which short-term experiences become long-term memories, happens primarily during sleep. During the night, your brain goes through cycles of activity that replay the events of the day, strengthening the neural pathways associated with important memories and weakening the pathways associated with unimportant ones. This is why you often wake up having somehow solved a problem you could not crack the night before. Why things that worried you before sleep often feel clearer, if not more manageable, in the morning. But this consolidation process does not treat all memories equally. Emotionally tagged memories, the ones the amygdala has marked as significant, get prioritized. They get replayed more frequently. They get strengthened more aggressively. And crucially, in the transition states between waking and sleep, in the hypnagogic state where your conscious defenses are lowered and your mind starts to drift, these high-priority emotional memories have a way of surfacing that neutral memories do not. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at the University of California, Berkeley, and author of Why We Sleep, has documented how the brain uses REM sleep in particular to process emotional memories. His research suggests that REM sleep serves a kind of emotional first aid function. It strips the emotional charge from difficult memories over time, allowing you to recall what happened without being flooded by the original feeling. But this process takes multiple sleep cycles, and in the early stages, before the charge has been fully processed, the memory tends to resurface with its emotional intensity largely intact. This is why the replay feels so immediate, so present, so bodily, because your brain is in the middle of processing it. The cringe, the flush, the physical sensation of shame, these are not you being weak. They are the emotional processing system doing its work. But there is a third layer to this that goes even deeper than memory consolidation. The specific content of the memories that surface matters, and it is not random. Your brain does not replay neutral memories at night because neutral memories carry no threat signal. The memories that return again and again are the ones where you were evaluated by others and found wanting in some way. The ones where you felt seen in a way you did not choose. The ones where the gap between who you presented yourself to be and how you were actually perceived became suddenly uncomfortably visible. This is because one of the most ancient and powerful drives in the human brain is the monitoring of social reputation. Mark Leary, a psychologist at Duke University, has spent decades developing what he calls sociometer theory. His argument is that human self-esteem is not primarily an internal measurement of your own worth. It is an evolved gauge of your social acceptability, a meter that continuously monitors how others are likely to evaluate you, and that triggers emotional alarm signals when that evaluation falls below a certain threshold. Embarrassment is that alarm. It is the sociometer firing. It is your brain telling you, your social standing just took a hit. Pay attention to this. Figure out what went wrong. Do not let it happen again. And the nighttime replay is the brain running its analysis, going over the event in detail, examining what was said, what was read from your expression, what conclusion others might have drawn, looking for the lesson, looking for what to do differently next time. Problem is that this analysis system was calibrated for a world where your social reputation was stable and local. In the ancestral environment, lived your whole life with the same group of 50 people. A social mistake could follow you for years. Learning from it was genuinely critical. The stakes were real. Today, you might embarrass yourself in front of 300 strangers on a train platform and never see any of them again. But your brain does not know that. It runs the same analysis routine. It gives the memory the same weight. It replays the moment with the same urgency, because it cannot tell the difference between a reputational threat that will follow you for the rest of your life and one that evaporated the moment you stepped off the train. There is also something particular about the night itself that makes these memories more intrusive. During the day, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, deliberate, regulating part of your brain, is actively engaged. It keeps the amygdala in check. It applies context. It reminds you that the thing that happened 7 years ago is finished and resolved and that nobody is thinking about it anymore. But at night, as your arousal levels drop and your prefrontal function reduces, the amygdala has more influence. The emotional memories it has flagged as important rise more easily into awareness. The cognitive suppression that keeps them at bay during daylight hours relaxes. This is why the memories tend to surface specifically in the moments before sleep, not in the middle of an activity. When you stop. Kross, a psychologist at the University of Michigan and one of the leading researchers on self-talk and rumination, has studied what happens when people replay negative social events in their minds. His research found a distinction that matters enormously. When people replay an embarrassing memory from a first-person perspective, seeing it through their own eyes, they tend to re-experience the emotional intensity of the original moment. The shame comes back in full. But when people replay the same memory from a third-person perspective, watching themselves as if from a slight distance, they are better able to analyze what happened without being overwhelmed by the feeling. They can extract the lesson the brain is looking for more efficiently. Kross calls this process of stepping back from your own experience self-distancing. And his research suggests that the nighttime replay loops, the ones that keep pulling you back into the cringe without resolution, are partly a failure of perspective rather than a failure of emotional regulation. The brain is trying to process, but keeps getting stuck in the feeling instead of the learning. This does not mean the solution is simple. It does not mean you can simply decide to view the memory from further away and the loop will stop. The emotional processing is automatic, But understanding what is happening, understanding that the replay is purposive, that it is your brain's threat analysis system doing exactly what it evolved to do, changes something about the experience. The memory is not evidence that you are broken. It is evidence that your brain took something seriously, that it cared about your place in the social world seriously enough to flag that moment for review. And here is the thing that most people never quite reach in the dark at 3 a.m. The very fact that you are cringing means something important. It means you have a working sociometer. It means you care about how you affect others. It means your brain is monitoring something it considers valuable. People who do not cringe, people for whom embarrassment never arrives and memories of social failure never return, are not psychologically healthier. They are often psychologically impaired. The capacity to feel shame and embarrassment, to care about social evaluation, is not a weakness. It is the neurological signature of belonging to a species that evolved to live in groups and to take that membership seriously. The memory will come back. The brain will replay it. That is not something you can stop. What you can do is understand what it is. A threat analysis system running a routine it was built to run, looking for the lesson, looking for the update, looking for the small adjustment that will help you navigate the social world slightly better next time. And in that context, the memory is not an attack. It is your brain, in its ancient and imperfect way, trying to take care of you, even at 3 a.m., even when it does not feel like it, especially then.